So 5 years ago, I was getting ready to give a talk. I had a very short period of time to speak, and I was being timed. And about 16 seconds before I got up on the stage, Reverend Michael Bernard Beckwith leaned over to me, and he said, "There's no warm-up time on this. You just have to get out there and hit it." There's something about that phrase, "there's no warm-up time," that strikes really close to home for me, because I don't know about you, but I am somebody who has spent a lot of time in my life warming up. I'm kind of a one-toe-in girl. I like to put one toe in the water, kind of test things out for about a year, then maybe put another toe in. But there is an uprising happening right now in our country, and I feel the heat of urgency. Children marching, football players kneeling, women speaking out, and openness and sexual preference and orientation. Do you feel the heat of our times? Everybody demanding equal rights, equal privileges. Welcome to the Great Reckoning. The journey that we're going to go on today is about moving from this place of reckoning, rising up, speaking out, into Renaissance, which is a rebirth and a renewal, and it's for the purpose of experiencing more grace in your life and more real freedom. So our starting point is this place of reckoning. A reckoning is a settling of accounts. It is a righting of wrongs. This is the moment where you get to check in with yourself and ask yourself, in order to be free from your past and free for your future, is there anything that it is time to get right with? Are there any places where you're holding on to something old anger or bitterness or rage, whether from childhood, relationship, career stuff, health stuff, even the process of aging? Is there anything that it is time to reckon with? For myself, I realized that my reckoning is around being a woman. I needed to take a minute. I needed to sit myself down and sift through all of the convoluted messages, direct and indirect messages, that I have ever received about what it means to be a woman. And I had to ask myself, here now, today, in 2018, what does it mean to me to be a successful woman? Because, see, for a while, there was a period of time where women learned to walk like men, talk like men, dress like men, in order to make it in the business world. We had, at Agape, just a couple of months ago, we had this extraordinary musician. Her name is Ariel, young girl. She came to Agape, and when Reverend Michael was introducing her, he shared that when she was starting out, she was so amazing that it was intimidating to the other guy musicians. So she just dressed like a guy. The whole beginning of her career, everybody thought she was a guy. 8 years ago, I had a coaching practice, and I got a phone call one day from a truck driver. Person didn't introduce themselves as a truck driver, but from the sound of the big, burly, demanding voice, I knew I was talking to somebody who hauls 18-wheelers cross-country, like no doubt. And so the truck driver started telling me about the challenges that they were having at the workplace, and I said, you know what, let's cut to the chase. Let's just make an appointment. So a week later, I get a knock at my office door. I go to let the truck driver in. The person who entered my office was not the 6'4", 260-pound, salty, crusty, ripped jeans-wearing male truck driver that I had so automatically envisioned from the sound on the phone the week earlier. It was instead a 5', 100-pound, petite, little long blonde-haired female in an overly starched business suit. I was so shocked. All I could do was blurt out, "Huh, you're not a truck driver." To which she replied without skipping a beat, "No, I'm just a woman trying to survive in corporate America." Do you feel the weight of pain and suffering in that statement? I'm just a woman trying to survive in a man's world. And the truth is, every single one of us has something we could fill that blank in with. I'm just a black person trying to survive in a white person's world. I'm a gay person trying to survive in a straight world. I'm a Jew or a Muslim trying to survive in a Christian world. Or I'm just a white Christian male trying to survive in a world that is changing. Or I'm something so completely neglected, she didn't even mention it when she was mentioning all the neglected groups. Could we just take a breath for all the missions we chose? You chose this stuff. Whatever you're facing, you chose this. You were up in the big boardroom in the sky with God. You were hashing it out. You're like, all right, I'm going to go in. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to have like a little side order of that. I'm going to do a little bit of this. And the whole time, God's just going. And you say, yeah, so I'm going to grow here. I'm going to stumble and fall. I will crash and burn. I'll climb my way back up. I'm going to have some transformation here. I'm going to have some awakening here. And God's just going. And finally, you just turn and look at God and say, no, I'm not doing that. Not that one. That's too much. That would hurt. I don't want that one. Give that to somebody else. And God just looks at you and says, if not you, then who? You are here to evolve your soul and the soul of humanity forward. If not you, then who? Could we just take a breath for all the challenges that you have faced in your lifetime? And if you've had especially big challenges, give yourself an extra breath. It means you really came to play. For most of my life, I would never have even considered that being a woman had anything to do with my purpose in this life. Why on earth would I? The messages I got early on made me feel like being a woman was being an object, property, involuntary servitude. I was like, thank you, no thank you. Not having any of that. And I took that sentiment pretty far. When my parents got divorced, there were a lot of things that were sad about it for me, but the part that just got me was thinking of my dad in a brand new empty apartment eating dinner alone. That was like just imagining him throwing a frozen dinner in the microwave and sitting down in front of a TV, peeling back the plastic wrap. Oh, at the time, I thought that was the saddest thing in the whole world. But do you want to know something? I grew up, I moved to New York City, and I became just like him. I lived alone, I went out alone, I ate alone. I wore these great big black military boots and an oversized army jacket. I thought that if I acted like a man, I could have the power of a man. Can we take a breath for every woman all around the world in all their different jobs, positions, socioeconomic levels that have ever felt that if they just acted like a man, they could have the success of a man? Can we take a breath for all the women that have ever felt that if they act like a man, they could be safe from a man? All the women all around the world that have ever felt they have to gear up, self-protect before heading out the door, whether from bosses, coworkers, friends, neighbors, husbands, brothers, fathers, grandfathers. I know I'm talking a lot about women here, but as I said, I'm finally owning up to the fact that I am one. I feel like I got to represent a little bit. So if I could, thank you. I used to always wear business suits, like boxy pants and oversized jackets. I'm becoming myself. Thank you. But if we could just take one more breath for every woman all around the world, right smack in the center of this moment, just trying to make it through the day without getting her behind grabbed. Can we do that much? Is that too far? I go too far for y'all? Because can I tell you what I think is too far? I think women and African American people and Spanish people still not getting equal opportunity and equal pay in 2018, I think that's too far. I think kids getting shot up in their classroom is too far. I think anti-Semitic racist marches through Charlottesville, Virginia is too far. I think the fact that 18 million women have been raped in the United States of America over the last 20 years, I think that's too far. I think the fact that 99% of all sexual predators walk free is too far. And can I tell you what else I think? I think time is up. I think that's what these times are showing us. Time is up. Time is up for every insidious, creeping, crawling, lurking, hidden injustice that is right now in our country being unearthed one group at a time, one by one by one. Welcome to the Great Reckoning. Your reckoning is about naming injustice. It is about drawing it out from every corner and every crevice where it dwells, demanding accountability, demanding reform. And some of us will get justice in the way we feel we deserve it. A person or a group will sincerely apologize and make reparations. Some of us, unfortunately most of us, won't get that. I can tell you I spent most of my life on a witch hunt. I was just gathering up my evidence. I lived for the moment that I could publicly take down some of the people that had harmed me. I thought I had to have that take them down moment in order to be free. Are there any places in your life where you feel like when something outside of yourself occurs, then I can? Then I'll lose the weight. Then I'll get healthy. Then I'll make the money. Then I'll be successful. Then we'll take off. Then. That whole racket is a lie. The only true freedom that ever occurs is the one born inside the marrow of your own beingness. So I have a 3-step, handy-dandy little yellow brick road leading from this place of reckoning, rising up and speaking out, into renaissance, rebirth, renewal. The first step is about building up your muscle of compassion. It's not just compassion for some, it's compassion for all. It's not compassion for the people you think really deserve it. It is compassion for every single person. Because the only way any of us become free is if all of us become free. Second step, sorry, I'm going to have to do this. I'm going to have to use the F word. The second step on the yellow brick road is forgiveness. Forgiveness. If there were any way around it, I would be first in line, but forgiveness is just part of the deal. It's part of the jam. If you're on a spiritual practice, if you are walking your walk, if you are being conscious, forgiveness is part of it. And it's not spiritual speak forgiveness. You know, where you like call somebody to you and you sit them down and you say, I forgive you. Because let's be real. I mean, if you have to set a meeting to forgive somebody, probably means you're still like a smidge not forgiving. You know what I'm saying? Real forgiveness is when you let it go. You just let it go. So I would like to give you an experience of what forgiveness feels like in the body. So become aware of any situation or circumstance about which you know it would be useful for you to practice some forgiveness. Doesn't matter however big or small, become aware of any situation that you know it would be a really good, healthy idea for you to practice some forgiveness around this. And then I would like you to imagine, to see, to sense, to visualize that you could take that whole experience that you're going to practice some forgiveness on, and any of the events that led up to it, and any of the events that resulted because of it. Take the whole thing, scoop it all up, and put it in a helium balloon. Just imagine that. And notice the color, the shape, the size of the helium balloon, and if this is challenging for you, just do the best you can. What I can tell you is that I have worked with CEOs, CFOs of Fortune 500 companies, Academy Award winners, Olympians. Everybody does some form of visualization. What is born in your consciousness first emerges in the material world. It's thought backed by emotion is creative. So that's my way of saying I hope you'll play along with me right now. So imagine that situation that you're ready to practice some forgiveness around. Imagine you could put the whole thing up in a helium balloon. Notice the color, the shape, the size of it. And then you notice that that helium balloon is tied shut by a thin thread. And that thin thread, naturally, is anchored straight into your solar plexus, your point of personal power. So I'd like you to imagine, to see, to sense, to visualize that you could reach over and pick up a pair of super sharp scissors. Just imagine some scissors. You pick them up, you lean over and clip the string. And whoosh, up goes the helium balloon. You may be comforted in knowing that by clipping the string and watching that helium balloon take off higher and higher into the sky, nobody and nothing is off the hook. Whatever lessons or learnings or karma are yours to get or anyone else's in this lifetime, they will find them. But by clipping that string, you let it go and you set yourself free. Nobody's off the hook, but you set yourself free. And so just watch that helium balloon goes up higher and higher. It gets smaller and smaller and smaller till it's just a little like pinprick, and then out. So now let's tend to you. Now you're available to be tended to. So imagine that you could pull that little string out of your solar plexus. Your solar plexus is about 2 inches below the rib cage and above the belly button. And when you do this, it's kind of like when the bathroom sink, the drain gets clogged. As you pull that string out, it's all that sludge, all that gunk that gets caked up in there. That's all the stuff, the stuff that goes rancid inside when we are withholding of time, energy, love. It's all the stuff that festers in there when there is a holding on of anger, bitterness, resentment, rage. That's the stuff that becomes disease. I'm not even saying dis-ease. I'm not saying it pretty. That's the stuff that becomes disease. So imagine you could pull that string out and get all that goop out. Imagine placing it on the top of one of the palms of your hand, and then with your other hand, your etheric hand, your energetic hand, just imagine like scooping up any residual pieces, any little bits of pieces. And you can also, if there are any areas where you experience chronic pains or discomfort in your body, you can imagine kind of scooping that up as well. Like if there's anything else, just imagine you're scooping it all up. If there are any places you're concerned about health-wise, you can kind of scoop in there and just pile it all up on one hand, and then you hold that hand up to that omnipresent healing vortex that is always present, always available to you. It gets sucked straight up, it goes straight out over the ocean, dumped in the ocean, washed and rinsed by the salty ocean waves. Dump it, it's out of your hand now, dump it, let it go way out over there. The sun evaporates it up, the rain precipitates it down, evaporate, precipitate, evaporate, precipitate, evaporate, precipitate, until it returns to true organic source energy, which is what it always was. So it's taken care of. Now let's take care of you. Last two steps. Imagine as though there's a fresh, cool spring shower just raining down inside of your body, rinsing out any last little bits or pieces connected to that old event that you were practicing forgiveness around, any of the events that led to it or resulted from it. Just rinsing it all out. And then the very last step, I'd like you to imagine as though you could pick up a crystal chalice filled with healing rose-colored energy, and as if you were putting gas in your car, you just fill it in through that solar plexus area. Just pour that crystal energy in, let it pool around. There are hospitals that use these kind of tools for folks moving through cancer and other illnesses, just allowing that healing energy to pool into your body, filling up your solar plexus, your whole body. And take a couple breaths as that assimilates. If this feels like something that's useful for you, I have it on a forgiveness CD. It's something you can practice, and I'm like a poster child for this. Because I used to have the most severe anxiety attacks, like crazy lady anxiety attacks. I don't have the time or the courage to share more about that right now, but my husband could testify, okay? There would be times where we would go to events, and what he would have to deal with in the months leading to them, at the event and afterwards, it was like off the charts. And I've done these kinds of tools, and they help me become clear and present in the moment and open and available. So if you feel like this is something that works for you, I do have it as a CD, and you can keep practicing with it. So that's forgiveness. That's the second step in the yellow brick road, leaving from reckoning to renaissance. You've got practicing the muscle of compassion, practicing forgiveness every day. It's not like once a year. It's not, it's not twice a year, it's every day. And then the third step, which is the reason that I was able to really get into the second step of forgiveness, the third step is trust. It is building up that muscle of trust. You live in a universe that's got your back. Starting to trust that you live in a universe that wants the best for you, that is here for your soul's growth, for your evolution, for your transformation. And here's how this trust piece works. The first part of it is you tell yourself the truth. Whether that means you shout it from the rooftops, you social media the heck out of it, or you go in a little tiny dark corner and you write it out. This happened to me. I didn't like it. It wasn't okay. It wasn't right. It wasn't fair. It wasn't legal. Whatever it is, you tell yourself the truth. But then you tell yourself the real truth. And the real truth is that you are made in the image and likeness and perfection of God. Tell yourself that. I am made in the image and likeness and perfection of God. Tell a neighbor, I am built for greatness. Tell another neighbor, this thing is built for glory. Tell yourself once again, I am here to be a beneficial presence on the planet. To be a beneficial presence on the planet. Yeah, take a breath on that. So that's the road, moving from reckoning to renaissance. To clarify the difference between a reckoning and a renaissance. Kids marching on Capitol Hill, that's your reckoning. When those kids grow up and they come of age and they show up in the voting polls en masse, when the kids become the candidates, and then they become the politicians, and they have to figure out, how on earth do you stay in integrity when massive corporations come knocking, dangling seductions of power and money? That is your renaissance. It's when you scoop up everything you have ever been through, and you spin it, weave it, sew it, sing it, dance it, sculpt it, paint it, invent it, build it into the masterpiece of your life. What is the masterpiece of your life? What's that way, that spark, that thing that you have come into this world to shine as? As long as you've got breath in your body, you've got purpose. There's something you're here for. You're never too old for it. You're never too young for it. You are just right in this moment. The world needs you now. Every news headline is a public cry for you, right? And the way that you midwife yourself into your renaissance, because a renaissance is a rebirth, the way you midwife yourself into the renaissance is by asking consciousness-evolving questions. My old questions were things like, how can I take them down? How can I make them pay? But the consciousness-evolving question is, who must I become in consciousness to be the beneficial difference that makes a difference on the planet at this time? And I got my answer to that question sitting in a practitioner session with Akili Beckwith. Practitioners, as y'all probably know, are spiritual counselors. I was sitting in a session with Reverend Michael's brother, Akili, who was a master practitioner. Back in February, I was whining to him about something, and he interrupted my story. I had a good story, and he interrupted my story, and he just said, you must love without specialness. And I just kept thinking, like, if only he wouldn't interrupt my story. I know he would have to say, oh my gosh, I feel so bad for you. You are such a victim. I can't even pray for this. This is like outside the parameters of prayer. Like, God couldn't even work this one out, is what I knew he would say if he would listen, which he did not. He said, you must love without specialness. And all I could think is, oh, wow, I love with total specialness. I love the people who love me. I love the ones who say nice things to me when I get off stage or post super nice things about me on social media. Of course, I'm going to love them more than the ones judging me and criticizing me right now. The ones, I definitely love them more than the ones that hurt me. The ones who broke me along my way and left my shattered pieces scattered on the floor like dust, like nothing. The ones who hijacked my joy and innocence and the joy and innocence of so many, harmed in so many subtle and overt ways. But Achilles not interested in pretty words. And so all he said is, you must keep no person outside the walls of your heart. And I thought, clearly, he does not know some of the folks I know. I was like, oh man, if only I could show him a list. If I could give him a list, I know he'd be like, oh, my bad. You could take, you could take 3 through 43 and you could just drop kick all those suckers straight over the walls of your heart, is what I thought he would say, but he didn't. Instead, he said, you must keep no person outside the walls of your heart. And since you are hearing this message, I come here once a year. And you're here. It means it is a designer message meant specifically for you. You must love without specialness and keep no person outside the walls of your heart. That means no person, no place, no circumstance, no organization outside the walls of your heart, no government. Still with me? No president. Think about it. If our Mr. 45 president didn't learn about building walls as a kid, he wouldn't have to build them as an adult. You are here to love without specialness and keep no person outside the walls of your heart. Does not mean you have to go out to lunch with them or vote for them if you don't want to. But for freedom, there can be no walls. So we've been on a journey here, moving from this place of reckoning to renaissance. When I wrote my book, What's Your What, this was like my testify. This was my reckoning. This is where, here's how I describe that moment when a person goes through that first moment of real reckoning. I said, from every angle, media, society, teachers, parents, friends, the shackles of appropriateness stand at the ready, cuffing our need for expression, choking individuality. Deciding to live fully means moving forward anyway. It is the child who decides to shine anyway, even when her radiance is a constant reminder to her parents of their failures. Choosing to shine anyway means breaking unspoken contracts between lovers lulled into mediocrity. Shining your light anyway means when you're young, other kids may call you a freak out of their own insecurity and ignorance, and when you are an adult, other adults will do the exact same thing, just using bigger words and thicker veils of false politeness. It means traditional religious communities may be offended by your existence. It means knowing yourself, trusting yourself, choosing yourself, and being your own mighty champion, come what may. That's your reckoning. Your renaissance comes when you start to know inside of yourself, no matter what society or experience or culture has taught you, you start to know your worthiness. Your renaissance comes when you finally realize there is no more warm-up time. Game on, clock ticking, you are up. You just got to get out there and hit it now. So last thing I want to share, I'm a little nervous to share it because I know this is kind of a mixed group, but I'm going to share it anyway because I'm being myself. I think it's beautiful when football players take a knee. For me, to see these great big men who have taken so much, I'm from the South, I've seen a lot, to see these great big men take a knee, these great big men who have taken so much, whose fathers have taken so much, whose grandfathers and great-grandfathers and great-great-grandfathers have taken so much, to take a knee, I think is beautiful. But whether you take a knee or you take a stand, time is up. Time is up for anything that is not clean or right or true or just, and the first place to look is not out there. It's not at the White House or any other house. It is right smack in the center of our own soul's house. And it comes by asking, where can I be more clean, more clear, more right, more true, more inclusive? Where do I leave people lying in heaps outside the walls of my own heart? Where do I forsake my aliveness, my fierceness, so I don't rock the boat or make waves? Enough, enough. Game is on, clock is ticking, you are up. You just got to get out there and hit it now. So as I've highlighted all the different groups, many of the different groups, rising up and speaking out right now, let us be sure to take one moment and look a little closer in and just ask yourself that consciousness evolving question. Who must I become in consciousness right now to be the beneficial difference that makes a difference on the planet at this time? Because every single thing you do and everything you say, even the little quiet whispers you say inside your own mind thinking nobody can hear, we all hear, right? We all hear it. Everything you do and everything you say and everything you be right now determines what our next generation will inherit. It determines what those little ones in the back are going to get. It determines what your children will get. It determines what your children's children will get. Let's raise the bar. Let's raise the bar so high we shatter every single last glass ceiling, yes? Yes. Many blessings to you, Bakersfield.